Hey everyone, welcome back to Data and Donuts. My name's Aaron. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Carmen Limon. Today we're here to talk a little bit about the perspective of a counselor and researcher and undocumented students through a variety of different lenses and backgrounds and perspectives that Carmen brings to us today. So before we get into our interview, I'd like Carmen to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here with Data and Donuts. Little bit about me. So I am currently a community college counselor. I'm an adjunct faculty on multiple campuses, but one of my main roles is definitely to service undocumented students. So I work directly with them in providing academic, personal, and career exploration. In addition to that, I am also a graduate student at Claremont Graduate University, and I am pursuing my degree in education. And a lot of my research focus is actually looking at the successful experiences of undocumented community college transfer students. And my personal connection to that, myself have a DACA beneficiary, so it's definitely the work is very personal. But it's an honor to be here and share a little bit about my experience with you all. So thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you so much, Carmen. And as we get into this interview, tell us, as a part-time counselor, what information and data is important to you as you start engaging with a variety of different students?
Great question. So something that's very unique to undocumented students in terms of collecting data is that, as some of you know, it's very challenging to identify who are the undocumented students in the community college, because it's definitely something that's very confidential. And there's really no way to signal out this student is undocumented versus a student is an international student or an out-of-state student, right? So they interchange. But aside from identifying the students, it also becomes challenging to, in a sense, to case management, because then we have a data source, right, where we're collecting this information of students' names, student ID numbers, and it's challenging systematically, but it's also challenging in terms of getting the trust from the students, because oftentimes there's great fear that their personal information will be shared with immigration officials, even though that they are completely protected by FERPA. It's still challenging to document that, right? So it's challenging in terms of collecting and also tracking your students for case management, and not necessarily tracking them in the pathway, but to make sure that they have the adequate resources and support. So the biggest part is identifying the students and maintaining that case management.
Oh, definitely. No, I think you touch on a lot of key components. And as a counselor and as a researcher as well, what are key components that we need to know? And maybe it's data we need to start collecting that would help tell that story and help us provide more adequate and resourceful opportunities for our students.
I'll definitely speak to the experience of a counselor first. When students walk into our office, we have general personal information, right? We'll have a name, a major, and their units that they've taken. We have a sense academic history. So it gives us an idea of what the student might be or who they are. But one thing that we never have is kind of that information of immigration background, right? So when we're counseling students, it's very easy to get excited about the career exploration pathways and start telling them about their endless opportunities, without realizing that the student might have other fears of, wait a minute, can I actually become a lawyer if I'm undocumented, right? And those are questions that we don't think to ask, because sometimes we work under the assumption that, oh, everybody that's here has work authorization. One of the greatest things is making sure that as we work with students is making sure that we're not assuming that everybody has work permit. So that when we're counseling students, right, when we're giving them especially that career advice, we are mindful that we have to think about creative pathways for students that might not be able to work in the traditional sense, but can definitely create their business models and just kind of guiding them in different formats. And the research perspective, I'm a very big component on the power of experience and storytelling. And when we collect data, oftentimes it's quantitative data, right? So we look at the educational pipeline, we look at attrition rates, we look at why are students dropping out, who is persisting, but we never get to hear the story of that student that did persist, or even the student that dropped out, right? Like what happened? Why did they leave? All we see is the numbers. So I'm a big advocate for qualitative research, and in particular through an asset lens, where we get to look at the strength that students do possess. So that's where, again, my dissertation comes in, right? Looking at student experience, using Yoso's community culture wealth model, where we look at the different forms of capital that undocumented students possess that essentially help them navigate community college, transfer, and graduation. So degree completion.
Excellent. No, I really like this conversation, and maybe you could touch on a little bit further. And I hate to dig deep into the dissertation before it's published or anything, but really looking at our undocumented students and really talking about those assets and strengths. What are a few that you can share with us that maybe other colleges could maybe leverage, identify, and help continue to advance? What could you share about that?
I think from the campus perspective, one of the capitals that undocumented students tend to possess is this idea of navigational capital. And navigational capital is kind of giving students the credibility of successfully navigating an institution that was not necessarily creative for them. And what I mean by this, for example, for undocumented students, when they are applying to the college, right away they're asked about their immigration status, right? So they have to learn how to even fill out the admissions applications by asking other people, because when you sometimes ask an admission representative or a faculty member or staff member, even counselors, they might not feel comfortable telling you how to answer that question because it's tied to immigration, it's tied to legality. So a student does that on their own. So that's the idea of navigation, right? They know how to navigate the campus. And then when they access financial aid, they have to submit an AB 540 affidavit. So learning how to fill out that form, making sure that they identify somebody to help them complete that form. And then California Dream Act. So there's all these steps, right, that happen just to be onboarded to the campus. But students already have that navigational capital because they find the answers. But as a campus, we should be able to give those resources to students so that the student is not going out of their way to find those answers, right? So making sure that all of our offices are equipped to support our students. And this is where the idea of equitable practices come in. It's not just one center or one office. It's really all of departments working collectively to successfully bring the student onto campus, because everything happens before they arrive. And once they're on campus, there's another array of challenges that they go through. But of course, I will go into details, but once my dissertation is published, please feel free to read it and invite me to your campus, and I'll tell you all about it.
Oh, most definitely. No, that's just very rich insight you're able to share. And I think, we're very lucky that you're working across multiple campuses, and even the college that I work with is sharing that, helping navigate, inform practices, policies, and processes, where we can work with our students who can navigate it around. But if they may not be able to navigate, how can we help bring that to them and meet them where they are? So just some of that insight, just so helpful. And so thank you so much. We're going to touch on this a bit further in another interview. I really like this, especially we'll follow up on the dissertation. But as we close out, I have two questions. First question is, data is said 1,000 different ways. There's no right way, no wrong way. I'm just trying to help shape what I'm going to call this program. So it's data. How would you say it?
As an English learner, this question is very stressful, but I'm going to go with data because that is the way that I always say it. But
Excellent.
It's definitely a stressful question.
It is. I trust me, myself working in it for more than a decade, and I'm like, have I said it wrong the whole time? Oh my gosh. But there's no wrong way to say it. So yeah, so it's all good. And so the next question is donuts. What's your favorite donut?
I will have to go with chocolate. Anything chocolate, I am happy. And I just want it simple. I don't want the little extra ingredients, no peanuts, no nothing, just plain chocolate, and I'm happy.
Excellent. Staying with the classics. Well, Carmen, this has been so much fun. I really enjoyed talking to you. I look forward to having you back and really looking at your dissertation, some of the fun research we can conduct together. So thank you again and have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you for the invitation. It was an honor.
Definitely. Everyone, please hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you again later.